Day and night, she found neither rest nor peace. If she slept, she was disturbed by tormenting dreams in which she saw him, always severe, always grave, always incensed against her. She wrote that in a letter he would never truly answer. And almost no one knows her name in this context. Most people know her as the woman who wrote one of the greatest love stories ever put to paper. But fewer people know that the novel was not entirely fiction. It was a confession, a love letter that could not be delivered any other way. In February of 1842, she boarded a steamship from England to Belgium. She was 25 years old, half blind in one eye, deeply self-conscious, and quietly desperate to build a life beyond the cold Yorkshire moors where she had grown up. She and her younger sister were headed to Brussels, to a small school run by a serious and respected family, where they hoped to study French and German well enough to one day open a school of their own back home. The school was run by a composed and watchful woman, but it was her husband who taught the literature classes. And he was not what she had expected. He didn't lecture, he ignited. He would read poetry aloud until the room seemed to catch fire, then turn on his students and demand they tell him what they felt, not what it meant, what they felt. She felt everything. She was not his equal in that classroom, not at first. She was his student. And in a household school like this, that line was clear. She helped teach the younger girls. She corrected papers. She ate at a separate time from the family. She was in the quiet arithmetic of that household, staff. And he kept his distance with the calm certainty of someone who had no reason to do otherwise. But then, he read her writing, and something shifted. He began to take her work seriously, pushing her harder than the others, challenging her in ways that suggested he saw in her something worth the effort. For a woman who had spent her entire life being overlooked, that attention must have felt like a window being opened in a room she had forgotten was sealed. Her sister left in the autumn of 1842 when family tragedy called her back to England. She stayed. Alone, now in a foreign city, more dependent than ever on the small warmth of her teacher's regard. She finally left Brussels in January 1844. When she returned to England, to the cold, gray moors, the silent house, the empty days, she did not feel freed. She felt severed. She wrote to him, again and again, letters that she later described as costing her more than she could afford to give. She begged him to write back. She promised to be patient, to ask for nothing. She only wanted to know he had not forgotten her entirely. He did not reply, or when he did, it was brief, professional, kind in the way that people are kind when they are also being careful. There is something in that particular silence, the silence of someone who understands what they mean to you and chooses not to confirm it. That is its own particular kind of cruelty. Not malicious, just honest, which in some ways is worse. His wife reportedly tore at least some of her letters to pieces. And yet, here is the strange mercy of history. She also kept the torn pieces. After her death, they were found, carefully reassembled, and finally made public decades later. 4 letters, heartbreak glued back together. She channeled every unanswered line of that correspondence into something that would outlast all of them. A novel appeared in 1847. A governess falls in love with her employer. He is difficult, demanding, brilliant, and he sees her, really sees her. But the world will not allow them to simply be. In her final novel, the most autobiographical thing she ever wrote, She created a passionate and impossible teacher who loves his student against every social convention. The book ends in deliberate ambiguity. The reader is never told whether he lives or dies. She knew how to sit inside an unanswered question. She had been doing it for years. She married in the end, in 1854, a steady and faithful man who had loved her quietly for years. She died 9 months later, at 38 years old. But here is what stays with me. He kept her letters all along. He could have thrown them away. He didn't. Maybe that means nothing. Maybe it means everything. Because love doesn't always look like a happy ending. Sometimes it looks like torn paper, carefully saved. Sometimes it looks like a novel that generations of people have pressed to their chests and wept over without quite knowing why. Because somewhere beneath the story, somewhere in the desperation of a woman who refused to be loved carelessly, there is a real person at a real desk, writing to someone who may never write back, and meaning every single word.